Mr. Michael Brown, that's a name I haven't seen in a while. How have you been, sir?
Uh, you saw me a couple weeks ago, conference call.
Oh, I mixed up. I'm expecting Mike Brown.
Oh yeah, no, this one.
You you changed the name on me because I didn't hear about Michael and he was like, "This is how you keep it straight."
I've got two Gmail accounts.
Yep,
One
yep.
Mike Brow at IBM dot IBM, and then another one that's just Mike Brow at Gmail. The issue, of course, being you had to use Gmail, couldn't use your IBM email.
Of course
But of
not.
course not. Uh, anyways, so yeah, it just uses whatever I've logged into.
Threw me completely off. So,
Who's that guy with he's too young, the 30-year-old guy.
I mean, the little icon you've got on the thing is like super small before you actually pull up the video screen. So I couldn't make anything out from that. But I just saw the Michael instead of Mike. I'm like, I haven't seen him forever. And I still haven't seen him forever.
That Michael, too common a name. Yeah, we could use his help on some of these registry conformance stuff issues.
Yeah, it'd be great to get some folks that are representing other registries to jump in and say, this is terrible, don't merge it. Or or not.
Yep. Ah. So how'd everything go last week? Anything interesting?
Over here, um, nothing super interesting. Let's see. I guess Jeff did start to go down the path of, hey, what about some new endpoints? So he started paying us on things, tag history being one of them. Wants to know if we want to go down that path. And the tag listing, the version 2 of that, we brought that one up again. But then he was going down and saying, what if we had a patch to the manifest API so we don't have to push the manifest when we're trying to push a tag? And so there was a lot of people that kind of thought kind of the same way you are. Like, hmm, that that was
Getting
the one that didn't land as well.
getting too close to the whole namespace issue.
I think the reason that I wasn't too excited about it was I was like, we're talking a couple of kilobytes for 99% of these things. And for the few exceptions where it might make sense, is it worth it adding another API for the handful of times we have an exception?
Yeah, especially when we're using both 256 and 512 now. That just saying. I want confirmation, damn it. Which one, which digest is this to against, right? I want to know.
Well, I didn't go into too much detail about what the patch of the manifest API specifically would be, but the
Yeah,
idea was that you weren't going to have to re-push the whole manifest every time you wanted to make some update. And the
fair.
case I think he was throwing out there was maybe you already got the V1.2.3 and you just wanted to tag the V1.2 and the V1 and latest tag or something like that.
Okay.
And so I was like, there's definitely a use case there. I just don't know that it's necessary.
Yeah, it's a far out use case where the digest isn't a DAG because it's an artifact. It's a small window.
It was a case of maybe I haven't pulled the manifest, and do I want to pull the manifest so that I can push the manifest? It's just like, just pull it. It should only be a couple of kilobytes.
Verification.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
That would be a more interesting conversation to actually talk about security, expirations on these manifests, that sort of thing.
yeah. Okay, he's here. We got to stop bad mouthing this suggestion now.
Okay.
How's it going today, Jeff?
Wonderful. You can badmouth all you want. It's totally fine.
Mike was asking what he missed, and I started mentioning your endpoint suggestions from last week. We got to the patching of the manifest, and I mentioned that it kind of landed with kind of a meh from everybody here, and it was the same way that Mike responded to it. So,
Hey, you know what? I'll take 3 out of 4. That's fine. That one was kind of more of a long shot anyway.
It's a good area of discussion. The problem is it brings in a whole lot of other side, corner issues that need to be addressed if we're going to go that direction. Or at least that's
Yeah.
how it happened the last time we talked about enhancing how tags work. It always comes back to well, don't we need a namespace API first? Or at least a spec, Uh, just saying. What are we tagging?
Yep.
Anyhow, Sajay,
Hello.
Sajay is here.
I haven't
And
checked the agenda. Was there an agenda today?
I threw stuff in there in the review category for
Ah,
things that we've got open for a while now and are looking for reviews. So feel free, dive in, hit merge on things you think ought to be merged. Otherwise, the one topic that I left in there, I was hoping Tianan would show up for this one, which is certification versus conformance. We do have, I can share a screen for this one. This would make decent screen share material here. Of course, to do that, I get the white screen from Zoom. Get that off. So we have a certification page on the website. It says, hey, here's how you can become certified. The hilarious thing is that the certification part of the website, and this if you want to find it yourself, up community, and there's a certification program link there. The hilarious thing about this is that it talks about runtime, talks about image, and that's it. That's the only thing that certification covers. And the process to apply is that you're supposed to, I think, send an email to an entry in there, and that email I think goes to Chris. And apparently we've got let's see, a list of members in there that are not maintained. So this page hasn't been touched forever. It hasn't been maintained at all. But the reason I bring it up is that there is also on the conformance page or on the conformance repo where we define how you do conformance for distribution spec, but not any of the other specs. That, hey, here's how you can get certified over here. Completely different process. Um, and so the reason I brought this up was when we were chatting about the pull request of this page, and we decided that we were going to make it possible for failure to be an option. I said, now that someone can submit a failing conformance test, does that mean they're certified? And that just opens a whole can of worms. So I kind of wanted to throw that out there just to hoping it'll be a softball thing. And Tianan chimed back in and said, yeah, we just need to forget that we've got anything out there that says certification, just end that whole thing. So it's like, well, maybe before I go that far, um, one, we probably need LF to chime in on that to really give a firm, do we even have that option to do that? Does that impinge on any kind of things that we have told our members that we're going to do? Um, but I figure it'll just at
Removing
least
it or doing it?
just getting rid of the whole concept of certification and just saying all we're going to do is let you know that you can do the self-conformance and that's it. That's kind of the proposal TNN threw out there. I think if we go that far, I feel like that's going to need an LF kind of response in there just to say whether or not we're even allowed to do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we're a standard though, so you would hope that basically we should have an RFC link, right? For particular APIs eventually, right? Until
yeah.
then, it's OCI certified via the conformance buckets. Um,
And to
which
Sajay's
you're
point,
right. We that and the artifacts, we just sort of dropped that whole boot, right? Decided not to do it.
yeah, I think doing a formal RFC is a whole another that takes us a whole step farther than I was ready to go right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
no. I just say, but I do think we still need some kind of a way to protect the brand, right?
yeah.
Uh,
So to Sajay's comment there, for anybody who can't see it, he's saying we should really be discussing this with Jory, and I agreed. Pulling LF on this would be something I really want to go down that path, and we've already started that. So Jory is already looking at the old conformance website that need a whole lot of work, and I had mentioned that to her, and so that was already on her plate. So that it's in work, but I just figured I would mention this just because this conversation popped up, and I figured. Yeah, I'm not quite as far as Tiana is on that path. I was looking to go the other direction. I figure we've got a lot of technical debt out there, and let's clean up some of the technical debt, make it better, or at least not add to it. Um, and Tiana is just like, just declare bankruptcy.
You change it from certification to conformance, right, to the standard. But then self certified is sort of like a TTLS with self certification, right? Here's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
here's my public. Trust me on the private.
I agree with you, Sajay. The ancestors did have some good reasoning. Sadly, the ancestors left a bunch of to-dos in there that have been sitting there for about 5 years now. No one's gone back to look at it.
No, no, I believe we should maybe revisit it and just validate what the reasoning is. But
Revisit,
uh,
validate it. Probably have a
yeah,
discussion about it at the next talk meeting.
Yeah.
it is overhead, and I'm sure Tiana has good reasoning. It's like I don't want to deal with this, right? So, uh,
That's definitely a next release item there, though, Brandon. It's good. It's a good one to have the
It
conversation that way.
It's something that, like I say, Joy has already got this on her to do, not so much for this page, but more because this page has like membership pointed people that, I mean,
It,
folks that look through that list will probably find one or two names that they're like, yeah, that person's still associated with this. And everybody else is
I
just,
remember Sarah. She was great.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, Sarah's great, but is she still affiliated at all with OCI over at Google right now? I mean,
I don't,
probably
I don't,
not.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
Stephen Wally,
Phil's no longer with IBM.
he's not, but
And,
he still joins in some of the OCI stuff. So,
oh yeah, well
change
he's
affiliation.
on the board. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So change of affiliation, but otherwise, like,
Yeah, just
yeah.
affiliation.
Yeah. So this whole thing needed a complete revisit, especially because it mentions that, hey, the only two that we're working on is runtime and image, and that's the only two that we're not working on. So that's just makes it all the more hilarious.
Very, very old information.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian, I don't know who made that list. It's old. Should I go look at the history for you? Would you be interested if I did some splunking in the code? Let's do some splunking in the code. I believe that is under content for community certified 6 years ago. Oh boy, this hasn't been touched in a long time. Yeah, it only had three commits. They were all back in April of 2020. And this was Celeste? Not sure who that is. Their name doesn't even like mouse over, so do they even still have a GitHub account? I couldn't tell you. Celeste Horgan. I'm assuming CNCF, so that was somebody probably on the LF side of the house.
2020.
Yeah. And it says migrating things or converting things, so maybe they were converting from something that even predated that. Might have just been somebody doing the website and wasn't actually responsible for the content itself. So who knows?
Maybe some deletes on that first commit. No,
Yeah.
in the PR anyway.
Yeah. So needs work. I threw it at Jory, and Jory was like sad and decided she was never going to come to one of these meetings again after I showed her that. Kidding.
Yeah, web page needs refresh.
Yeah. It's like every time I show up, these people give me this historical stuff that they haven't touched in years, and Can't I just leave this for the next person?
We can probably just open an issue and do the changes ourselves.
Did I? I didn't open an issue over there, but it can't when we were working on some of the other stuff. Camp when I was making the blog post, maybe, or maybe another one of these issues. I'm not sure. I might have cleared out one of those things, and yeah, one of the many things that's on our to review list right now is the blog post over there. But that is in draft mode because I don't want anybody to merge the blog post before we merge some of these other things. And shipping a blog post is a whole lot easier than getting some of these other things to get merged. So let's see. Mike, I think there might have been something over here. It might have been the tag. One of these, I think I had a question for you on of whether you're, yeah, this one, the field lines and a field section and the response header. That didn't roll off the tongue for me too well. Wanted to see how attached you were to that phrasing, because otherwise we've got a couple of approves on this.
I mean,
We
I
have,
just I didn't want to throw in extra wording around it, but they are if you're going by the RFC, I remember it was field lines, but we
is
weren't
that how
mentioning
our,
those.
is
Yeah.
that how the RFC phrases it on their side?
Yes, that was my point. Yeah. Sorry, could have left that in there. Yeah. A little more explanation. Field lines, combined field value. There's your yeah, 5.2 section. That
Yeah.
seemed to be what you were going after. I mean, you could say each with a field name. But yeah, that's why yeah, I didn't come up with that on my own.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking, I was like, that does not roll the tongue at all for me. I've just always called it a header.
Or you could map the if you want to mention the RFC, then you could map the terms if you want. As specified within the RFC, field lines are these, right?
We said right now there was a response header, and OCI tag is the response header. And so it can be multiple, but then we say in accordance with the semantics of that RFC. So we've got the RFC linked there.
Yeah.
Um,
So I could make heads or tails between what the RFC was saying to do. Well, I mean, it could make heads or tails, but I decided heads or tails is probably the bad point there. Why don't we go ahead and integrate the wording?
I'll give this a relook to see if there's anything else.
And they're very specific about how it gets concatenated as well. I'm not looking at the rest of the text, but
Now, I think the important part about the way this is being phrased was that you can have foobar and baz, and if they're all in one line, they can be comma separated, or they
right.
can be multiple headers in there. So
And or
it's
and or
your choice. Yeah,
it's
either way.
really this the field example field is foobar baz. Is how you just need a little more description, I think, because that's not obvious, right? Is the second one an override of the first one? You got to ask the question, right? And the only way to find out is to read the RFC, and then that doesn't really map very well to the header.
Mm, I feel like they're trying to say, here's how you. Yeah, because when I read the way you had phrased it, must include an OCI tag field line and a field section of the response header.
You can say of on the second end, but it was in the
Hmm.
header, so it's a bunch of lines in the header, or a number of lines.
Yeah. Jeff, feel free to jump in here and say, no, this is a terrible idea.
Scroll
Or,
down a little bit. There was
yeah,
more.
there was I think you're doing the same idea in a
In this
couple of these
example, yeah, well, yeah, sort of. Yeah.
field lines and
The,
response errors. So,
the most important of those three recommendations was the last one that you
so
actually,
in this example, the field value.
yeah.
So before any of that, we say, let me just switch over to the other view here. Because before any of that, we say, for example, if the client pushed the following tags, and there's the tag list right there, the server could respond with. And so it's not saying you must respond, it's just saying, hey, you could see something like this. And it's got these three and another one in there in a separate line. So we've kind of clarified here's all four of them up here, and here's what the server could respond with.
Right.
And so the goal there was to say, here's the full example of the back and forth. I feel like you're saying, hey, this could mean that you've got these four entries in there, which, yeah, that's repeating.
That's what the way it should be implemented. I mean, you could have added a must tag.
Well, we don't want a must
The field
because if we
value
say,
is, I mean, yeah, I just said is, but it needs to be. If you've provided both the lines, you've got the additional value.
we got the lines, we got the additional value.
Your example has two lines, 530 and 531. OCI
Hmm.
tag, the key, right, is 123, comma, 12, comma, 1. And
Hmm.
then the next line concatenates because it's the same, right?
Yeah.
Same key, latest. So that it just a simple little explanation. These are concatenated. If you want to say these are concatenated to, right, to one list, that's fine.
So we originally had them on one, and then the decision was made to split it across multiple just to show this is how the RFC works.
Right.
So I think doing another explanation of we're doing this in accordance with the RFC, here's what it looks like. By the way, this is what the RFC says feels a little redundant in that case, but
It's redundant, but it's yeah. We didn't make it redundant within the other descriptions. That's all I'm saying. It was we sort of act like there's two competing specs here, but we cite it to the other one.
So where are you seeing the competing part of the spec?
Well, definition of terms. Field, no field lines and no, right, no explanation of the concatenation.
I mean, it's OCI tag is a header.
Yep.
And so whether it's called a header over here, HTTP authoritative. Do they not even call them headers in the spec?
I don't remember seeing anything like that.
Because everyone else calls them headers.
I,
Why does the spec have to be complicated like this?
registered key namespace. What? I'm sure there's, yeah, yeah. Well, I wasn't trying to open a can of worms, but we are referring to it. Um, and the specific example is right there on 5.2, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I got mine from. I was just kind of copying that.
Right. I figured, I figured you wouldn't be. Is it really repetitive? I guess.
Or just headers colloquially. See, we're a colloquial kind of group. We all call them headers.
Header fields or just headers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not too hung up on trying to
It,
rename it and make it match, but
yeah. And it just says fields, not field lines, but yeah.
So the field line is one of these lines.
I
And
get the impression that it's a section, and if it's in a different section, you wouldn't be doing the same kind of concatenation. It doesn't explain that. I'm reading through this and it just didn't fit exactly. So I figured one or two more sentences added to your description, you can make it fit exactly, and leave no question. Or maybe a different sentence that explains how, our terminology maps to the RFC.
so I'm also thinking your question of do they concatenate or overwrite, this is pretty clear about saying they're being concatenated.
They are for field lines and a combined value in a section of the header. Thus the wordy. It also says concatenated in order.
Yeah, we aren't too picky on the order.
I, but the RFC was. According to the RFC. That's the part that caught me.
I
So I read the RFC and I was like, I don't really see what that means, according.
so they can be picky on the order, but we can be order independent on our side. If we cared about the order, then we would use the order that the RFC tells us is going to be the order we're getting. But since we don't care, we can ignore that part of the RFC.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, 'cause you can't wild card tags when you're going through a list. It has to be an explicit tag.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the skin. I'm still leaning toward the phrasing Jeff's got in there. I feel like it's pretty decent. It's my personal take, but if I was to come across this and I had to
Just
pick between,
suggestions. Yep.
yeah, if I was to come across this and I had to pick between A or B is the one that made the more sense to me. It's definitely the way it is written today makes more sense than to try to say field lines in a field section and the response header. I mean, it's if I was to read that, I'll be like, wait, what?
I
I
That's
I would be
what
more
I read.
confused.
When it said without that description, when it said in accordance with RFC, okay, I click on the link and I go read. What does that mean? Where is it defined in the response header? How is it defined in the response header? It said, well, you have a section with field lines, right, in fields, and then they get concatenated.
I will leave this open to other people that have opinions on this.
I guess so. Is your question or point about after we have the example of the multiple field lines to just add another sentence of saying, by the way, these are now concatenated in the response, kind of.
According to the RFC, or yes, I mean, yeah, it according to the RFC, they're concatenated in order, right, as presented as a concatenation. Yeah. If you want to call it something different, that's fair. But and it was just suggestions.
Well, that's also why I was chiming in there to say, hey, since my own personal preference is that the way it is now made more sense to me, but in this, is this a blocking suggestion in your opinion? I mean, do you want to see us do something with this, or do you think it's not great, but we can still merge it as is?
Yeah, it was not a blocking suggestion. I didn't ask for the change.
Yeah,
Said,
yeah.
yeah.
kind of understand the change and like maybe to, if we want to do it, you could have like quotes around field lines and field names and all that to make sure it's like this is language from the RFC, and
Yeah.
you could put
Yeah,
like
you could even say
colloquially
that
the response
phrase
type.
in the words of the RFC, right? Yep.
Yeah,
And that would be a follow-on sentence to the one that was already there.
yeah,
That would be fine. Yep.
yeah. But I think most case header is people understand that. But
Yeah, I
being a
think
spec guy, I understand the need for precision.
I mean, the one thing is these are not headers, right? So it is confusing. It's one header we're talking about that's represented as multiple field lines. So that statement could respond to the following headers is incorrect. Like just from a preciseness standpoint, that I think
That,
that's probably worth talking about. But
I
again,
think I think you're right,
I'll leave it to
Sajid.
you.
That's probably what caught me at first
No,
was
no, no. I think it's important to kind of distinguish the fact that this is one header, but it's parsed. Uh, Again, there's no reference. I went looking in the Golang SDK. There's no reference of field lines and field values per se in the SDK. So,
right.
but it's still worth calling out that it is one header, which is what we did in the previous section that you commented. So,
So to Sajay's point, it is not called out in the Golang SDK. I thought it was, um, but I had to make a change. Pulled in from Tannen recommended a change, which was, hey, Go doesn't do this, so you need to go through this whole process to parse it and do a couple extra steps. And that made it in.
Oops.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping Go would do this for me automatically and just do that nice merge, but no.
Yeah, I hadn't looked at this part. So
You haven't read the thousands of lines of changes that I've requested to make over there? I can't believe it.
sorry. Other items to review. All related to AI, of course.
Uh,
Priorities.
I, I do want to give credit. I think it was Sam that sent over the AI responses, and there was some good little nuggets in there of things to change.
It's getting pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Scary good. Looking for another career. I don't want to
I
be an AI babysitter for a living. Not me.
I feel like there is a happy side on there when the AI is giving you the review. If you're trying to review the AI, it's always going to outsmart me. It's going to arts outsmart me every time.
Yeah,
It's going to be able to
especially
phrase words.
it'll get better. That'll get better. You probably want to take a look at what Sam Karp is doing in Containerd with respect to how we have these agents that run together, and he's been working on minimizing the slop, if you will, right, in the review.
Yeah.
Very much like lint, only just a smarter lint, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to turn off some of those lint rules.
And Sam is chiming in the chat
Oh,
saying
hey,
that's
he's
exactly
here.
what I sent.
Hey, Sam. I didn't notice you had come in. I was
Yep,
giving you
I'm
credit
here.
there.
Was a little late, but I'm here.
Hey, buddy.
Wizard is never late. Um, always on time. So for this one, if it's non-blocking, unless someone else chimes in, I feel like we can merge, and if we want to tweak some wording later on, we can always tweak that in another little iterate on top of it, unless there's somebody that says, no, this really needs to be cleared up.
I mean, there's enough description there, and you say according to the RFC. So what I said was correct. And
Yeah.
if you don't agree, then right. then you're not in
It's
accordance to the RFC. When you
it's for
take
me, I'm a colloquial kind of person. So when I saw that other verbiage there, I was just like, wait, what?
and I'm basically the way I read it, right, was import that section, that RFC, as referenced.
Hmm.
How would that read, right? Because you would be it introduces different text, right, in the descriptions that weren't followed. So but then it uses the same example, but it doesn't talk about the output of the example is, right? It misses the important part of the example.
Yeah, I was reading into the fact that we've got the input right there. And so the output would have been somebody
Right.
that implemented this input.
Yep.
So
Which was the two lines in
here,
the header. Yep.
yeah, so you're just looking for one little third confirmation there of okay, we've got the API call, we've got the API response. Now give me some kind of text response here that says this is what those two things just meant.
Yeah. Yeah. If you take out the other things I had mentioned, you could clean that up by saying in accordance with the terms described in the RFC, right? This would be a field value, right?
Yeah.
Then
Jeff, it is your PR, so I'll leave the decision up to you if you want to see us merged as is and we can iterate, or if you'd like to go ahead and add an extra line in there and maybe tweak some of the header plural to header singular references.
Uh, I can see value in just adding a clarifying statement at the end. So I might look at doing that and get it updated.
Okay. All right. We beat that one more than it needed to be beat. This one's got two approves on it, so I think we can merge this one if unless there are any objections. It looks like it's a terribly big PR, but it's just because I had a lot of history and I reused the same PR rather than changing history. So I feel like this is ready to go. The ultimate change after all this stuff in there is just that, hey, there is this digest algorithm parameter. At least we didn't have to litigate how to phrase this in actual RC. Thank goodness, Brian, you're right there. Um, so yeah, digest algorithm is passed on the blob upload API when you do your post. And that is only if you send a non-canonical entry, the canonical being SHA-256. And yeah, so if you ignore all the comments and history and everything else, it's just that one little extra field in there. So pretty sure this one's good to merge. If anybody wants to stop me, you've got until a short bit after this meeting to stop me there.
Nope,
Otherwise,
please
I'll hit
merge.
merge.
And we can
Okay,
we can go ahead and verify, go ahead and commit the one change to the container D that implements this, Deanna wrote.
nice. And then all the fun stuff for conformance is sitting out there. So I accept that's going to take a long while. But it is no longer in draft, so you no longer have that excuse, Mike. That's all I have for this week. Anybody else got stuff you want to chat about?
I'll draft up more PRs for the new endpoint stuff announced last week. I'll get that for next week.
Okay. There
Thanks, Jeff.
was one other person that dropped a PR shortly before the meeting, um, but they put some other stuff in there. This just dropped like an hour ago, where they wanted to implement the whiteout question we had from 1301. I'm sure anybody didn't remember it, was, hey, what happens if I have just a .wh and not the actual file that I'm whiting out? And a bunch of stuff just completely breaks if you do that. So we clarified in that issue that, hey, that shouldn't happen. And so I haven't even had a chance to read the text here. I'm probably going to give a review, tell them to separate on the line feeds and that, or on the end of the sentences and stuff. So I need to read that and see if it makes sense. I'm not positive whether we want to put the links in brackets though. Didn't know what they were doing with that, so I need to go back and look at that as well. So there might be some unneeded changes in here that we can take back out. But in case anyone is curious on this one, I will drop this in the minutes so you can follow along with more fun previews later on. And pull that part in. And yeah, that's all I got for this week. Everybody want to consider yourself certified to opt out early on this week? Wrap it up. That's as much of an OCI joke as I can throw in there. There's just that's as far as we're getting.
I got the joke.
All right, folks. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll be back here, same bat time, same bat channel next week. Cheers all.
Cheers, bud.